Muted.
Okay. Okay. Now we're getting into, we're okay with SQL statements. Now we're getting into SQL script, yeah? So which is basically an extension. I have sent you this document already yesterday about SQL script. See, hello,
Unmuted. Muted.
hello. Okay. So it's like say, it's like normal SQL, and extension to the SQL would be your SQL script. Say, see, it's like normal SQL with all the SQL statements. You'll have data extensions and functional extensions and procedural extensions. All this makes up SQL script. You'll have data extensions, functional extensions, procedural extensions. All this make up your SQL script. Like normal SQL with some extensions onto data extensions, like say data type declarations. For example, you've been looking at data varchar, integers, big int, small int, decimal, all this. But if you write SQL script, you will find data types like table types. Like in ABAP, you have something like types. You can declare your own structure with a set of fields. You will have those kind of data type declarations also. That is called what in SQL script, that's what they refer to as data extensions. Yeah? We'll have some new data set of data declarations as what? Table types. You can define your own types and use it to declare your temporary tables or whatever it is. Then you'll have functional extensions, like you can build up complex logic. Let's say you have a business process logic and you would like to execute some sequence of steps, sequence of statements. Then you can formulate your own functional logic. And you can also have procedural extensions, like you can build up like if conditions, looping statements, or conditional statements, or where while loop, for loop. You can basically build up a control flow logic statements also, and all this makes with some extensions to SQL is what we refer to as SQL scripts. Now I told you we have something called HANA models, a calculation view, attribute view, and analytical view. See, it's like the same. We learned about creating table. In the real time, we may not really create table. Okay, you'll have the database tables already into different systems. We will replicate those tables. For example, in ECC, you have those tables like VBAC, Mara, markup. You would do some SLT replication or BODS. You will bring those tables into HANA. As it is, the tables are not ready for the consumption by the reporting users. Then you have to do some modeling on top of it. You got to do some slicing and dicing on those tables and to deliver the view what my business user wants. Then what SAP says for this, SAP has given HANA like attribute view, analytical view, calculation view. You leverage those base tables and do all kind of modeling on top of it, like deriving new column or hiding some columns of the table or manipulating a new column joining with different set of tables, all those kind of manipulations you do, and you project it to the business user. Now, what I say is, if there is some logic which you are not able to implement with these graphical HANA models, you can implement that with SQL script. Mm, Look at this. For example, analytical view or attribute views are not sufficient. Look at the set of SQL script. Okay. Can't see. So look at this. SQL script should be used in case where other modeling constructs of HANA, for example, analytical views or attribute views are not sufficient. Okay, and one more major point of writing SQL script, see, two ways. Say I have HANA database. Let's say I have some ABAP application layer at the top. So I would like to read data from some table and then do some manipulations and store it back into table. Can I write an ABAP program? Let's say I'll write an ABAP program. First, I'll write a select, which will read from table and store into some temporary table. I'll loop through the temporary loop at I tab, and then I'll do some modifications. Then I'll insert the data back to table. If you write a program this way, are you moving the data from database layer to application server and then application server back to database? So they say most of your programming time is spent in the data movement from database layer to application layer and application layer to database layer. To improve the performance of these programs, we wanted to push down the logic deep into HANA database. We want to push code to the database. Instead of reading data to the application layer and then processing, whatever the logic you wanted to implement for manipulating, why don't you push deep into the database? Just call that. If you implement an ABAP program, you're taking the data to the ABAP program, manipulating, then sending data back to some table. You're moving some data in and out of the database. What are the manipulations you want? You implement that logic in the database. From the ABAP program, just call this logic. So this logic will not move the data out. Within the database, the data is manipulated and then gives you status saying, yes, the logic is complete. So with this, I'm eliminating the data movement from database layer to application layer. So to handle this kind of things, we would like to push down the logic of data manipulations deep into HANA database. So when you got to implement the logic or coding or programming or business functions within the database, we use SQL. You can do that with attribute views or analytical views or calculation with the modeling HANA models. If something goes beyond the capabilities of these HANA models, you have to get into SQL. So I have two tables with some lots of columns. My business users wants some 5 columns from table 1 and 5 columns from table 2 and some new columns to be derived or calculated. What I'll do, I'll just create some calculation view. I'll say table 1, table 2, join them, just select 5 columns from this, 5 columns from this, and then derive some new columns and give it. Let's say there is some logic which I'm not able to implement with the graphical modeling with calculation view. Then I'll have to customize, I'll have to implement that logic with what? SQL. So with the help of SQL script or the HANA models, we are trying to push down the logic deep into HANA database. That's the concept. Yes. Not necessarily. Let's say when I replicate table, let's say a table with all the columns, let it come into HANA. So this is not the what business user wants. So what I would do is I would establish some modeling models on top of these tables where you do slicing and hiding some columns, projecting some new columns, what is already not there in the table, you go deriving new columns, whatnot. You do all kind of massaging to the data and then project it to the business users. So when I do with HANA models like calculation view or attribute view, it's all more of graphical. And if you would like to implement some logic which is not possible with the graphical modeling, you would do that with SQL script. So then what you're doing, and the results of the SQL script are projected to the business users. Now, when business user runs a report, it does run the SQL script and then gets it out. So now, where is my logic been pushed in deep into HANA database, and which is processing in main memory, and I would have high results. So no. So when you look at any application being powered by HANA, your focus would be implementing your logic deep into HANA database. If you got implement your logic deep into HANA database, it will be through SQL. Very, 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 very important. This will have life. Any interview you go in, you would have a lot of weightage for this. It's like a programming language. How do you write your ABAP? It will be like SQL. It's like another set of languages. Okay, good. Now, when you're writing an ABAP language, do you write that in some container? Say you write some ABAP, you write that in a container like executable program or include program or a function model. You write that in some containers. So within the executable program, you write all your ABAP statements, and that becomes set of statements becomes what? A program, right? Yes or no? Yeah. So same way, when you're writing SQL script, we can have two containers, either function or procedures. When you are implementing SQL script in HANA database, you can have either two containers, either it could be function or stored procedures. And let's say I would like to write some say SQL script, which is like collection of SQL statements and some extension to SQL, and I would like to write this program as SQL script. So when I need to write a program, I need to have some container where I can put this coding into. Yeah, it could be functions or stored procedures. These are the two containers which can hold SQL script. See, in ABAP, you can write include program, executable program, or function model, or you can write it as a perform, all those stuff, right? Subroutines, all those. Here, if you got to implement your SQL script, which is like a program for with SQL statements, we can only have two containers. One logical container, one is procedure or functions. Now, SQL script logic implement చేయాలనుకున్నాం. You can implement through procedure or you can implement through writing function. Okay, boss. And within function, you'll have two types. One is user-defined. We call it as user-defined functions. Scalar variable, scalar UDFs or table UDFs. I'll come. See, there is. See, if you go through differences now, you may not really get exact what I mean to say here. Okay. First, let's see some function. Let's see some procedure. Then let's discuss on the differences here. So basically, you can have two containers. One is procedures, all functions, and functions will be of two types. Normal user different function with scalar variable data types, and one is table UDF sometimes. Yeah, table user defined functions. If you go to this document, you will have something. What is this here? Logical container. You'll have see what is this here? Procedures or what? User UDF and user defined function. They use the word UDF and user defined function. And if you get into this user defined functions, that there could be types of user defined. One is table UDF or what? Scalar UDF. Simple example, you see, we'll try to understand the differences. Then we get into right here using any of this. You can refer it as table UDF. It's a user defined function which can return table. What do you mean by table? Set of rows. Yeah. Let's say I implement a function with some logic which is returning me set of rows. Then that is referred as table UDF function, table user defined function. Let's say I implement some function which is just returning me a variable of type integer or variable of type varchar, a scalar, normal, simple data type. Then that is called a scalar UDF. If I implement a function which can return me set of rows like a table, then that is called as table UDF. If I implement a function with a body of SQL script which can return me a scalar, simple data type variables like integer, varchar, all this, we call them as scalar UDFs. So ultimately, you can go about writing your SQL script by implementing stored procedures or functions, and functions could be two types. Table UDF, which will return table set, which will return row set, yeah, and scalar UDF, which is returning only simple data types. Okay. Let me just see. So they'll have syntax on. We'll extend the syntax later, but now just to see one. I'm just implementing some function. Look at this. So we use a statement create function to create a function. And there is, and I'll show you this. Another PDF, right? The first PDF which I sent you, SQL statements. Then if you go to procedural statements, we are done with data manipulation and data definition. Now we're getting into procedural statements. Look at this. We have something like what is create function, create procedure. So create function is a statement which we use it to create a function. Create procedure is a statement which we use it to create a procedure. And drop function is a statement which we use it to drop the function. Drop procedure is a statement which we use it to drop the procedure. Sorry. Drop procedure is to drop the procedure. Drop function is to drop the function. So you can go about using create function statement to create a function, create procedure to create a procedure, drop procedure to drop the procedure, drop function to drop the function. And let's say once you create a procedure and we use a statement called what is call. We use call procedure and then we call the procedure out. Yeah. And when it comes to function, you don't explicitly use a statement call. We use a function into the select statement as a from clause or in the column list. Depends on the type of function. We'll see that one and then we'll get it. So what I've done is I've just written a simple, I'll explain this later. Simple function which is basically adding two numbers, nothing else. So I'll say it's 5 cubics. Look at this. And function must returns always a value. Yeah? Look at this. Create function. And I'm creating this function called what is this? This is the name of the function. Schema name, it's like 5 cubics. Dot, I want the function name to be as what? Add. And I've got two input parameters, like say v underscore a int, v underscore b as int. It's like import parameters of your above function modules. I have two import parameters, okay? And then this will returns another variable called v underscore. This is like export of your above function module. Returning nothing but exporting, yeah? So it said this is the function, and as begin and end, you write all your logic into this body. Between this block, begin and end, you start writing your logic. So what is this? This function is designed such a way it takes two inputs, one is A and B, and then it returns out C. And what is the value of the C within the body? You're going to derive how the value of the C is going to be derived from. So I'm going to say the value of A, the value of variable B to be added up and to be assigned to what? Hello?
Unmuted. Muted.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Yes. So what? See, this function model is with the syntax. There will be defined syntax. We'll always look at that. That's not a problem. It is defined such a way that it takes two input parameters and returns out one value, which is what v underscore c. So within the begin and end, you would have all the body of your logic. It is basically adding up the value of a and b and assigning it to v underscore c. And the value what is being assigned to v underscore c will be written out from this function. Now tell me, this is a function because I'm using the keyword what? Is it a function or a procedure? Function. Now, is it returning table or is it returning a variable of simple data type like integers? So, is it a scalar UDF function or table UDF function? Scalar variable. So, because it is returning a variable of type scalar data type integer, so it is scalar UDF function. Yeah. Okay, if it is scalar UDF function, okay, I just create this function out and just execute this. And you should start seeing your function in this schema, functions. Where is the function? Do you see this function add? Okay. Now I would like to show you how can I use this function out. Look at this. I am saying select 5 cubics dot add 10 comma 20 dot vc means what? With this statement I'm calling this function. Yes or no? While calling, I'm passing the value for 10 and 20 is like named parameter or sequential. So 10 will go to A and 20 will go to B automatically sequence. And whatever is written, I'm just collecting this backward. E function written just V underscore C na cover. Am I using this in the column list? Normally, when it says select, you start listing out what columns you want. Since this is a normal scalar UDF function, I can use this in the column list like this. So I'm saying select, call the function and get the returned value from dummy, I'm just saying. So this will return me what? 30. 30. So this is scalar data. I'm just using it column list of the select statement. Okay. Let's say I have another function which is going to return me a table image. Okay. Now this time I've got another function. Yeah? So look at this now. This is referring to Cubex SQL custom. Okay. See, I've just done a simple thing, nothing else, nothing much complex. I'm saying create function in this scheme, and the function name is what? Return table. This is a function which is going to return me a set of rows here. And this takes one input parameter. This is like what is specified here is input parameter. LV test ID as a what data type here? Int. Okay. And returns table. And this, when I say table, this should have some set of column names. So returns table with this structure: customer ID, city ID, country ID, region ID, company name, city name, country name, and region name. Okay. As begin. So within this part of it, big end part of it, within this end, begin and end block, you will start writing your logic of your function. So what I'm doing is, 20 gante what I'll do. I'm going to return something like this. There's a table called customer in this, which one in Cubex SQL we had a table customer. There's a lot of entries, customer ID, city. With the same column names, I have defined my return table. With the same column names, I've written my output table, return table. So what is my logic is, you'll pass some customer ID, say 10 or 20 something. If he passes 10, it's got all the rows from this table which is less than this 10. So I take this, I'll just select star from this table where customer ID is less than what? Less than the input parameter what you passed in here. Okay, was fine. Yeah. So now, will this function is going to return me some set of rows? Yes, sir. Activate this. Reload system. Then restart at the base again. Will SAP deliver any standard scripts like content in BW? He's asking me are there any functions ready-madely delivered? Yes. In the initial classes, I was referring to something called AFL, Application Function Library, which will have two things, business function library and predictive analytics library. There are some ready-made functions delivered. We can see them also. I can. Sir, here, no, I'm not explaining scripting. I'll explain, don't worry. I'll explain everything. It's activated. Now, if that has been activated, should I see the function here? So you see a function called return table. I can see the definition of it. What has already been declared. We say this is the parameters and this is the statement what has been used to create the function. I can see that. Even for add, you can see this. Okay. And now, so now is this a table function, right? It's a is this called as table UDF because it is returning would return multiple rows. So this kind of function we don't use it in the column list. We use this in the from class, as if this will be referred as a table which is going to return me a certain set of rows for me. So I'll say, how do I call this? Select star from what is it? Function, and then I'll just pass something 20. What it's showing? A question. It's like a table which is going to return me some rows for me. Yeah? Actually, less than another. So I pass this 10 to it, and the 10 will go and sit into this select statement, and it will return me only which are less than 10. But is this returning me single variable value or multiple rows? Multiple rows like a table. That is called as table UDF. So if you look at this normal scalar function, I'm using this in the column list class, right? If you look at this table UDF, I'm referring it as if it's a normal table in the what? In the sum class. Okay, so that is normal scalar UDF. This is called as table UDF. Okay, numbers fine. Okay. So let me just show you one procedure. So can I also have my scripting filled into stored procedures also? Two containers, functions or procedures. And within functions, that is scalar variable UDF or table UDF. Now I'm going to implement a stored procedure, which will again implement my SQL script again. A simple one I can do. I can just go with normal adding two numbers. Yeah. So now this time, what statement will I use? Create function or create procedure? Create procedure. Simple. I'm just doing adding of two numbers. In v underscore a as int, v underscore b in v underscore b int, out v underscore c int something. I can write language we will see full syntax later. But so this is like just like a procedure. So it's almost pretty much same, but the only difference you see is like with it's like in, and I'm using this in parameter, and what is this here? So in keyword indicates these are input parameters, and out keyword indicates output parameters. So now procedure is created. Now I can see this under procedures. Now look at this. What is demo add? Now let's say I would like to trigger this procedure and get me the results for me. So if you need to call the procedure, I use what? Call. I use a statement called call the procedure. Call and drag your procedure name. Does this procedure need any input parameters? Yes, 10, 20, and then it returns me 1. So I put a question mark and then collect. So I'm passing 10 to A, 20 to B, and then collecting the result out with the question mark. Gives me 30. So if this is like, you can also implement your scripting using stored procedure also like this. Procedure or function two types again. Our question raised first you got this now. So I can write my scripting either way, either using function or either using procedure. But if I implement my scripting using procedure, I will trigger the logic by using what? Call function. If I implement my scripting using function, I need to, if it is scalar variable function, I call this in the column list of the select statement. If it is a table UDF, then I use it as if it's a from clause of the select statement. నా స్క్రిప్టింగ్ ప్రొసీజర్ రాయొచ్చు, ఫంక్షన్ రాయొచ్చు. ప్రొసీజర్ అయితే కాల్ ద్వారా ప్రొసీజర్ కాల్ చేయాలి. అదే ఫంక్షన్ కాల్ చేయాలంటే అది స్కేలర్ వేరియబుల్ ఫంక్షన్ అయితే సెలెక్ట్ కాలమ్ లిస్ట్ లో కాల్ చేసుకుంటా. అది టేబుల్ యూడిఎఫ్ అయితే ఫ్రమ్ క్లాస్ లో పెడతాం యాజ్ ఇఫ్ ఇట్స్ అ టేబుల్ ఫర్. ఓకే, నౌ ద క్వశ్చన్ కమ్స్ ఇస్ వాట్ ఈస్ ద డిఫరెన్స్ బిట్వీన్ ఫంక్షన్ అండ్ ప్రొసీజర్? You want to see procedure which will return table. Uh, I'll not even take any. If you want, you can take input. Yeah. మనకి ఐ ట్యాబ్ పెడితే బాగా వస్తుంది. So now I have procedure which is returning me some result of select statement, which is like R. So I would call this call, and then so procedure also can return my table, so set of rows. So sorry, I have not used this variable name, right? 0, 1. Cus ID. So the naming is different. So I'll pass 10 for it and then collect the results. So whether my procedure returns me a scalar variable or table, I would always use call function to call the procedure. Okay. So now let's get the difference. Now what is the difference between functions and procedures? Okay. Procedure can return 0 or n values, whereas function can return only one value, which is mandatory. I can write a procedure which does not return anything at all. Say, for example, I don't waste my time. Where is duplicate name? The name. So do I have any output parameter here? That is just adding that, yeah. So I can have procedure without any output also. Return jelly, but I can call my procedure without any return values also. Okay. Make it use garambadu. What is it? Procedure. Where మొత్తం లేకుండా So what is this procedure doing? It is just executing the select statement. So when I call this procedure, the result of the select will be my output. If I say call, take this procedure, nothing, you're not passing any input, you're not passing any output. If I just call this, it is going to print me these results. So if I want to just print the values, I can just call it out. I'm not returning the things, but I'm printing the values from there itself. So, but if you look at function, it must return a value. It must, the value could be a scalar variable or it could be table, but it must return a value. I can have a stored procedure without returning anything or multiple output parameters also. Like for example, if you see, I got out v underscore c, comma, out v underscore d. Okay, v underscore d colon equal to, let's say, v underscore a into colon v underscore b. But this time I'm just multiplying value of a and b, putting in. So I'm returning v underscore c and v underscore d also. So I can have a procedure which will return multiple values like this. Okay? 10, 20, I need output 1 and I need output 2. One is 13, one is 12. So I can have multiple output parameters. Yeah. That's what I mean to say. When I say procedure can return 0, means no value, or can return n number of values also. Now, did we see a procedure which is returning multiple output parameters, like v underscore c and v underscore d both? But whereas function can return one value, which is mandatory, which could be table type or which could be scalar variable type. That's the first major difference. అర్థమైంది కదా పాయింట్. ఒక ప్రొసీజర్ రాసేటప్పుడు అవుట్పుట్ ప్యారమీటర్ ఏం లేకుండా ఉండొచ్చు, చాలా అవుట్పుట్ ప్యారమీటర్ ఉండొచ్చు. ఫంక్షన్ మీద ఒకటే అవుట్పుట్ ప్యారమీటర్ ఖచ్చితంగా కంపల్సరీ. అది స్కేలర్ వేరియబుల్ ఉండొచ్చు ఆర్ టేబుల్ టైప్ ఉండొచ్చు. Procedures can have input and output parameters for it, whereas functions can have only what? Input parameters. If you look at this here, focus. When I'm writing function, I'm just saying v underscore a, v underscore b. Did I say in or out? By default, they're considered as what? Input parameters. But when I'm writing procedure, I could have input or output parameters. I'm explaining using the keyword in, out to specify that it is an input parameter or output parameter. Inko keyword in is for input parameter, out is for output parameter. In out is the variable can be used as both input as well as output. Can I say about what of them that? But there is a concept like in out also, which could where the parameter can be used as input and output parameter also. So it says procedures can have input and output, whereas functions will have only, see, whatever is specified in the parenthesis is what parameters list we call it as. You say create procedure and you specify this in the parenthesis, this is what parameter list, which could have input and output. But whereas function, the parameter list will have only inputs. In the output, I want to see only second output, then how will I execute? Then don't write, then don't return out this push. He's saying I want to use only, it will return a multiple, but depending on your requirement, you can use a value. See, you're getting question marks like this, right? You collect both. In the next set of statement, use only one of this. That's it. Okay. Procedure allows select as well as DML statements, whereas functions allows only select statements. Means when I say procedures will allow select as well as DML and data like inserting, deleting, or updates on the table, all those can be done in the procedures, but your function will allow only select statement, just only about reading. But procedure can do any kind of manipulations to the database, about inserting, updating, upsert, all those can be done now. Okay. And functions can be called from procedure, whereas procedures cannot be called from functions. Now, once you have a function, I can call inside a procedure, I can call a function, but inside a function, you cannot call procedure. Function can be called inside a procedure, but procedure cannot be called inside a function. And In the procedure, we can implement try-catch block about exception handling. You do some condition and then say if this condition is there, raise an exception. We have some concept like signal and re-signal. When you raise a signal, it does raise an exception and you can throw some message. Error handling can be done. Okay, we call it as try-catch block. So we can have try-catch block in the procedure, but not in the functions. Okay, we can go for transaction management in the procedure, like about committing and rollback statements can be used in the procedure, but not in the function, because obviously you cannot do any inserts or nothing. We can also handle the statements like commit and rollbacks also into your procedures, but whereas function you cannot use them. Now procedures cannot be utilized in the select statement, whereas functions can be embedded into select statement. You understand this? When you say function, how is that I'm calling it? If it is scalar variable function, I'm embedding into column list of the select class. If it is table UDF, I'm embedding into from class of the select statement. So I'm embedding my function into select statement, but procedures cannot be done like that. Procedure, you have to explicitly use a function call statement to call the procedure out. And UDFs this is what we're focusing on. Here I'm saying I can be used in select statements. Here I'm explaining UDF can be used in the select statement anywhere in the where having select. Whereas stored procedures cannot be. In the select no select column list, having clause, where clause, vadochu the function. And UDF that returns tables can be treated as another row set, like another table kind of stuff, and this can be used in joins with other tables. Your function which is written in a table type can be treated as like normal table, and you can use it to join to other tables also. And moreover, I told you we have some graphical models, calculation view, attribute. In calculation view, I can use table user defined function as a source object. Means I can take a database table, I can take table UDF and join them. And how am I using table was I can also use table UDF function as a source object. That's what I mean. So I can use this table UDF function results, can join with the tables also. Procedures you cannot insert into views. What is it? Inside procedure, you might say. Inside procedure, inside procedure or function, I can always write a join statement. That is not the point. What I'm referring is, I have a table UDF function, which is written in, say, let's say, some set of columns. I have another table which is written in some set of columns. I would like to join the content of table 1 and the result of the function with some column. That's what I'm referring to. Normal join condition I can implement inside a stored procedure or inside a function. That's okay. What I'm referring to is I would like to join content of a table versus the content of results of my function, table UDF function. I cannot do that with graphical modeling and calculation. You got what I'm saying? Because you go to treat table UDF as if it's a table result set, like temporary table result set. But it is not physically stored. It is all virtual. What are the results you're getting out of function? It's all virtual because only at runtime when they run it, they start giving you results. So what I'll do, I'll create a calculation view where I'll say I'll have a table UDF function, I'll have a table, join them. When I fire out this calculation view, first I'll run the function, get the results out, then joins the result set with the results of my table. That's how it is. So this is what you can look at the differences between function and procedures. So when we are practicing SQL script, I can go over practicing SQL script either by writing functions or by writing procedures. SQL script procedure writes, మన ఫంక్షన్ రాయొచ్చు, మన అల్టిమేట్ మన ఫోకస్ ఏంటి సీక్వెల్ స్క్రిప్ట్ నేర్చుకోవాలి. సీక్వెల్ స్క్రిప్ట్ నేర్చుకునే ఎగ్జాంపుల్స్ నేను ప్రొసీజర్ రాయొచ్చు, ఫంక్షన్ రాయొచ్చు, నాకు డిఫరెన్స్ ఆల్రెడీ తెలుసు కాబట్టి. నౌ విల్ గెట్ ఇన్ టు రైటింగ్ స్టోర్డ్ ప్రొసీజర్స్ ఇన్ నాట్ టు లర్న్ అబౌట్ సీక్వెల్ స్క్రిప్ట్. నేను ఆ పీడిఎఫ్ ఓపెన్ చేసి ఒక్కో టాపిక్ చెప్పను, ఒక్కో టాపిక్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ చేసుకుంటూ దాన్ని డీబగ్ చేసుకుంటూ అట్లా నేర్చుకుంటూ వెళ్ళను. ఐ లైక్ టు లర్న్ లైక్ దట్. ఐ డోంట్ లైక్ టు గో త్రూ డాక్యుమెంటేషన్ లేదు. ఐ హ్యావ్ మేడ్ సమ్ Okay. So I have some list of stored procedures what I maintain around some 50 to 70 examples here. With each of the one, like I want to demonstrate how does if condition work. మనకు అన్ని తెలుసు దీనిలో కొద్దిగా సింటాక్స్ వేరే ఉంటుంది లైక్ సింటాక్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇఫ్ వుడ్ బి లిటిల్ బిట్ డిఫరెంట్ వైల్ we all know some or the other language, at least the basics, right? So what we do, we just have to get, we know the concept of if, but how, what is the syntax of this? What is the case statement? What syntax? Loop and loop, cursor statements, and then arrays. మనకు అన్ని తెలుసు కాన్సెప్ట్ దీంట్లో ఎట్లుంటుంది అనేది ఒక ఎగ్జామ్ చూసుకుంటూ పోతాంటాం. ఓకే, we'll just start it from tomorrow, but just look at this now. We're going to have some examples on all this kind of stuff. Right? How do we read tables, then temporary tables? How do we loop through if condition? They're working with case statements, while loop, for loops, and then loop and end loop. And how do you work with break and continue statements? How do you work with cursor statements, looping through the table? How to write dynamic SQL? Then and how do we go with something like result view? You see complete syntax, and there's something like the view. Now, can I do reporting on stored procedure? Yes. So you will write a stored procedure. If you look at the full syntax of a stored procedure, you'll have something like reads SQL data with result view on it, where the result of the procedure can be projected as a column view. See, there's some new concept here. Do you see there's some column views? Yeah. I can implement a stored procedure which will be projected, which will project that as a column view list. Other can. So I can write like this. See now, I would like to write my procedure. Out I tab and customer I tab is equal to. So if I write like this, if in order to get the results, I need to call this procedure like with call statement. I'll say reads SQL data with result view. What should I say? Result view name is customer list or something. So I'm saying whenever I have a procedure which is outputting table type, whenever I have a procedure which is returning table type output, I can control the result of this procedure to be as a column view. What is the column view name? Customer list. Select this and say, run this. Cannot duplicate. Let's say 03 also. Now let's see what is it. So now to see the results of it, can I say call? Okay. Can I just call this procedure? Getting results. Did I write my procedure which is returning me with result view? So then what happens when you create a procedure with result view? What is the view name? Custom. It does create a column view in the backend. Look at what is. So now when I can also see the content of column, open data preview. Where is this data coming from? Column view doesn't hold any data physically, but when I try to see the data of column view, it is actually running the stored procedure in the backend, projecting results. Now, can I do report? Can I build universe on top of this column view and then do reporting? Morning report definitely not. How you're able to do reporting on a table of HANA? I can do reporting on this column view. I can go about building an IDT universe on top of this column view, and on top of IDT universe, I can build a web report. So when you run a web report, in turn it is executing the procedure and getting the results of the procedure to my reporting. So when you have complex logics which you're not able to achieve with the graphical modeling, I can implement my logic scripting which will return that as column view, and column view will be used for reporting. Okay. No, let's not worry now how they create universe, but they can do this also. Okay, Nanda? Yeah? Or suppose they don't find in the view lo vadiki derived table or concept ఉంటుంది. Or column you can just treat this as like normal table. What only derived table select star from customer list and పెట్టేసి కూడా యూనివర్స్ బిల్డ్ చేసి కూడా రిపోర్ట్ చేసుకోవచ్చు, ఎలాగని చేసుకోవచ్చు. ఓకేనండి. See, this is a column view which is just been written from a procedure which does not have any input parameter. Input parameter ఏమైనా ఉందా? లేదు. కాబట్టి I straight away can see open right click say content. But if you have an input parameter, if you have a procedure which is written in a column view with input parameter, then I need to write some separate way of syntax. In that case, in view they have to use derived table to get that. We'll see that later. But column view and we can have a procedure which can be result out with as what? A column view. So whenever I try to see the content of the column view, it does run your procedure and gives you the results. But we can control the results of procedure as a column view only when you have an output table type parameter. If you don't have output table type parameter, I cannot control the results to be a column view. Only when your procedure is returning out table type parameter, then only we can have the results of the procedure can be configured as a column view. So tomorrow, we're going to learn about SQLScript. You can learn either by writing with function or procedure, but procedure will give me more flexibility of writing. So we'll go to creating a lot of set of stored procedures in learning SQLScript. This will have life course. Ana unna elipena idiniki life ఉంటుంది. Scripting ki SQL ki ఎప్పటికి life. So please focus. ఇప్పుడు అన్ని ఇంట్రూస్ లో SQLScript అంతా మన బీడబ్ల్యూ అబ్యాప్ వచ్చినట్లు అడుగుతాడు, అనాలో SQLScript వచ్చాను అడుగుతున్నాడు. అండ్ ఎవ్రీ ఇంటర్వ్యూ దిస్ ఇస్ వాట్ దే ఆర్ ఫోకసింగ్. అంటే వాన్ కోసం కాదన్నా, నీ కోసం నేర్చుకో. సీక్వెల్ నేర్చుకుంటే ఎట్లుంటావు అంటే కస్టమర్ దగ్గర ఇట్లా కూర్చుంటుంది, నీకేం కావాలి చెప్పుకుంటాం. ఇఫ్ యూ డోంట్ నో సీక్వెల్ స్క్రిప్టింగ్, ఇఫ్ యూ జస్ట్ నో గ్రాఫికల్ మోడలింగ్, భయపడు అంటే వాడు ఏమడుగుతాడో ఏ చెక్ బాక్స్ సెలెక్ట్ చేయాలో భయం ఉంటుంది. సీక్వెల్ స్క్రిప్ట్ తెలుసు ఇట్లా కూర్చొని ఒకటే కాన్ఫిడెన్స్, వాడు ఏం అడిగినా కోడ్ రాసిస్తానంటే ధైర్యం. అర్థమైందన్న? వాడు ఏ లాజిక్ అని అడిగిందన్నా, నీకు కాన్సెప్ట్ తెలిసినప్పుడు ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఎందుకు రాయకూడదు? జనరల్ మనకు ప్రోగ్రామ్ రాసే తప్పు, కానీ గ్రాఫికల్ టఫ్ యాక్చువల్లీ. లాజికల్ గా ఆలోచిస్తే గ్రాఫికల్ మోడలింగ్ ఈజ్ మోర్ కాంప్లెక్స్ దాన్ రైటింగ్ స్క్రిప్టింగ్. నువ్వు అన్ని చెక్ బాక్స్ బట్టి కొట్టి బ్రెయిన్ లో పెట్టుకోవాలన్నా, పెద్ద టెన్షన్ అవసరం లే. అన్ని మర్చిపో, ఫ్రీ కూర్చో, వాడు లాజిక్ ఇస్తాడు, మొత్తం కోడ్ రాసుకుంటే లాజిక్ వాడే లాజిక్ ఇస్తాడు, నువ్వు దాన్ని దీనికి అర్థమయ్యే లాంగ్వేజ్ రాసి ఇచ్చేస్తావు. గ్రాఫికల్ మాట కింద నువ్వు అన్ని బట్టి పెట్టి రిమూవ్ చేస్తావు, ఇది అవసరం లే. వాడే ఇస్తాడు మొత్తం స్టోరీ, అదే స్టోరీని దీనికి అర్థమయ్యే దాంట్లో రాసి ఇచ్చాడు. సో స్పీకింగ్ వస్తే ఇంకా యూ విల్ హ్యావ్ మోర్ కాన్ఫిడెన్స్, యూ కెన్ అచీవ్ ఎనీ లాజిక్ యూ వాంట్. గోయింగ్ ఫార్వర్డ్ ఏంటంటే you would like to implement as much as logic possible deep into HANA database using SQLScript. So SQLScript weightage పెరుగుతున్నాడు. ABAP with SQLScript ఎందుకు అడుగుతున్నాడు? We have concepts like ABAP managed database process. Outer layer ABAP ఉంటుంది, inner data intensive logic will be with SQLScript. True, అదే నిజమంట. ఓకే ఓకే, వెరీ 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 ఇంపార్టెంట్. అంటే ప్రోగ్రామింగ్ నాకు రాదు, నాకు టఫ్ అనుకున్నప్పుడు ప్లీజ్ గెట్ ఇన్. 2-3 సార్లు కొడితే అదే వస్తుంది అన్నది, పెద్ద కథం కాదు. చూసే కొద్ది అట్లే ఉంటుంది, దిగి 2-3 సార్లు టైప్ చేస్తే రాదు. నేను కూడా కొత్తగా నేర్చుకుంది నిజం, ఎప్పటి నుంచో రాదు, పిల్లప్పటి నుంచో రాదు. అండ్ ఐ రిటర్న్ ఆల్మోస్ట్ ఒక 2000 ప్రొసీజర్స్ రాసి ఉంటాను. అదే ఏదో లాజిక్ అనుకోవడం రాయడం, లాజిక్ అనుకోవడం రాయడము రాస్తే నీకు గ్రిప్ రాదు. అంటే నాకు ఏదో ఒక లాంగ్వేజ్ అంటే సి కొద్దిగా అబ్బాయి కొద్ది అక్కడ కొద్ది చెప్పుకుంటాను. నాకు తెలిసాల్సింది ఏంటి, దీంట్లో సింటాక్స్ ఏంది, ఇఫ్ అనేది ఏందో నాకు తెలిసాలి, దీంట్లో ఇఫ్ సింటాక్స్ ఏంది, వైల్ అనేది ఏందో నాకు తెలుసు, దీంట్లో వైల్ సింటాక్స్ ఏంది వరకు నాకు తెలుసు. సో విత్ దిస్ యూ క్యాన్ మేక్ డిఫరెన్స్. ఓకే ఫైన్. ఎంత భారీగా రాయగలిగితే అంత భారీగా. నువ్వు నీకేం కావాలి చెప్పండి కూర్చోవచ్చు. బట్ గ్రాఫికల్ మోడలింగ్, అందరూ గ్రాఫికల్ మోడలింగ్ ఈజీ, కానీ ఇదే ఈజీ యాక్చువల్లీ.